with us to talk about a really important issue. Human trafficking is a $32 billion business worldwide. And we know here locally that researchers at Point Loma Nazarene University and the University of San Diego have estimated that as many as 8,100 people could be victimized each year in San Diego County alone. San Diego is one of 3 California cities on the FBI's top 13 human trafficking cities in the country. I would like to see us taken off that list as soon as possible. And I assure you all of the people behind me are here because they're committed to that goal. With me are San Diego County District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis and others who will help me take you through a package of measures that will help us arrest, convict, and provide necessary assistance to survivors after they've been rescued from their traffickers. The first bill is SB 270. This legislation requires all hotels and motels in California to train their employees on how to recognize the signs of human trafficking and how to report those signs to law enforcement. Unfortunately, hotels and motels have commonly been used by traffickers as a place to sell their victims to their customers, and the hotel lodging industry does not want that to be part of their brand. So I'm grateful to them for being a partner in this effort to bring predators to justice. And in a moment, we'll have a board member with the association who will talk about that. The second bill is SB 230. It allows a prosecutor, when trying an accused sex trafficker in court, to introduce evidence of the defendant's past sex trafficking crimes with the judge's permission. Right now, when a criminal defendant is being tried for a sexual offense, like rape, the prosecutor can present evidence at trial of similar sexual offenses that the criminal has committed in the past. Makes sense, right? Well, SB 230 will add human trafficking to the list of sexual offenses that can be introduced in a trial in this way. And I'm pleased to be working closely with our District Attorney, Bonnie Dumanis, who in fact brought this idea to me, and she's going to talk in more detail about this issue in a minute. The third measure I want to mention is the need to help commercially sexually exploited children after they've been rescued. Currently, we in California lack an effective system to serve child victims of sex traffickers. And for more than a year now, I've been working hard to find a better housing option for these children. We need to give victims a safe place to stay, removed from their trafficker. We also need to provide children with mental health counseling to overcome the specific type of trauma that comes from being trafficked. Providing funding for housing and counseling is a major need, and it's a big priority for my first couple of years in the Senate. Now I'm going to ask our District Attorney, Bonnie Dumanis, to say a few words. They have been doing an incredible job to stop human trafficking in our community, so I welcome our District Attorney, Bonnie Dumanis.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Atkins, and thank you for highlighting the efforts that the San Diego District Attorney's Office has done in the area of human trafficking. I'm honored to be here and grateful for the leadership of Senator Atkins in this particular area and in these 3 particular bills that are very substantive bills, and are going to help those who are victims of human trafficking and those that can help people with human trafficking. As the Senator said, our office has been on the forefront in human trafficking. We have an entire department that contains experienced prosecutors, investigators, and support staff in sex crimes and human trafficking division, which is dedicated to fighting for the victims of human trafficking. When America's finest city, as the Senator mentioned, makes the list for the FBI as one of the worst places for child prostitution, it's time for every member of our community to pay attention. Girls as young as 12 years old in neighborhoods across San Diego County are being recruited and trapped into a life of prostitution, or more accurately, a life of perpetual abuse at the hands of their pimps. Our Sex Crimes and Human Trafficking Division estimates that perpetrators in about 50% of the sex trafficking cases are gang members. Once girls or boys are under the control of the gangs, victims are tattooed, they're branded, and beaten to maintain profits for the traffickers. That's why mandatory training for hotel workers to be able to identify and report human trafficking is so important. Hotels and motels are the top location where child prostitution and human trafficking happens. In fact, last year, our office, along with community partners, hosted the first motel-hotel human trafficking awareness symposium in San Diego County. And that is under the leadership of Chief Deputy Summer Steffen that many of these efforts have occurred, and this in particular, and with the partnership of the Hotel Motel Association and with those here in San Diego County. With more people being able to flag the warning signs of human trafficking, the greater the likelihood that suspected behavior will be reported. With more people being able to flag these warning signs, it's important to expand the law to allow character evidence also, and evidence of past criminal acts to be used in cases involving sex trafficking, pimping, and pandering. As the Senator said, makes sense, doesn't it? These types of cases are notoriously difficult to prosecute due to the nature of the victims and the traffickers, including sex trafficking, pimping, and pandering to the list of crimes in which prosecutors can use character evidence will take us further in our fight against human trafficking. We can only win this fight with the help of the community. Everyone can help. And to quote Cesar Chavez, on what would have been his 90th birthday, "You are never strong enough that you don't need help, and we need all of your help." Thank you again, Senator Atkins.
Thank you to our district attorney, and I want to add my incredible appreciation and acknowledgement to Summer Steffen. The work that you have done, your name is synonymous with this work, not just in San Diego County, but throughout the state. I now want to bring up an incredible person who has joined us in this effort, Vipul Dalia, to talk about the efforts of the California lodging industry. You know, when the state, and this bill is a mandate, the bill that I am putting forward is a mandate for hotels and motels to conduct training. Many times when you, from the state level, do a mandate, people don't want to join in that. But let me just say, the California hotel and lodging industry stepped forward. They were actually ahead of this legislation. They had put into practice best practices for training. And it is, in fact, the training that our State Department of Justice has looked at and given a seal of approval on. So they are ahead of the curve, and it's only right that they are here today, and I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vipul Dayal, and I'm a current board member for California Hotel and Lodging Association, as well as a current board member for the Asian American Hotel Owners Association, and an ex-committee member for the County of San Diego's Regional Human Trafficking and the Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children's Committee. CHLA represents more than 75 hotels here in San Diego, and AHOA represents more than 120 hotels here in San Diego. I'm here today to show my support to Senator Atkins, as well as the SB 270 bill, which would require hotels and motel staff to undergo training to detect signs of human trafficking and how to report those signs to appropriate law enforcement agencies. The message is very simple. Educating hotel and motel employees is a critical step in supporting and informing my industry about the role it has in combating human exploitation. Education also leads to greater collaboration within our communities, because we know hotels and motels are only part of the solution. We learn how to best work with law enforcement agencies, how to work with city and state administrators, how to work with advocate groups like women's groups and church groups. We also learn how to work with elected leaders such as Senator Atkins, who cares so passionately about this, about this issue and solving this issue. And right here in San Diego, we made tremendous strides. In April of 2016, almost about a year ago, we came up with a program, led with the Deputy DA, Summer Steffen, called Safe Action Project, in which we trained local hotel staffs here about human trafficking and how to detect the signs. And until I became more involved, I didn't know that San Diego was one of the it was ranked at the FBI as one of the 13th highest high-intensity areas for child prostitution. So we as hoteliers knew in San Diego we had to act. So that's why we adapted this program. And currently, we have about 58 hotels who have undergone the training here in San Diego, and who's actually reported some of these crimes to law enforcement agencies. So not only are we reducing this horrendous crime in our communities as well as in our industry, but hotels are becoming a less likely place for this kind of stuff to occur, and we know that our employees are doing the right things because they are protecting our guests. So on behalf of CHLA, on behalf of AHOA, on behalf of the San Diego Hotel Motel community, we support SB Bill 270 and the fine work that Senator Atkins is doing. There's more work to be done, and SB 270 will help not only in our community and our industry, but also help the great state of California do it. I look forward to working with Senator Atkins and continuing my work with Deputy DA Summer Stephan to get rid of human trafficking here in San Diego. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. I also want to invite up another person from the hotel and lodging industry. Todd Forrester came all the way down from San Clemente to join us, and he has been the general manager of the Holiday Inn in San Clemente for 25 years. And so what I would say, the fact that we have someone who wants to come south and risk the traffic, we are grateful and we welcome you, Todd.
Well, thank you very much, Senator, and it is an absolute honor to be here and appreciate the hard work that you're doing. Not at my hotel was what my first thought when I was approached by I-5 Freedom Network, who patiently explained to me that perhaps I was wrong about that. After learning about human trafficking and how it is present in all hotels, from 1-star to 5-star, we agreed to have our staff trained on how to identify and respond to this condition in our industry and on our property. Since being trained, we have successfully identified and removed several probable situations of human trafficking that have walked into our lobbies. Some of the signs would be a couple coming in and he's holding her ID. She has a trash bag of clothes. Or a do not disturb sign on the door for several days, yet they need sheets and towels. We have engaged in our local law enforcement as partners, and they have shared best practices on how we as hoteliers can respond and then keep the sirens away from our guests. Knowing that hotels play a big role in the trafficking business model, we have decided to address this head on and to find a way to have our hotels play a larger role in the fight against human trafficking. If we are trained, we'll be ready, and then we'll know how to respond. I ask everyone to support this bill for effective training in hotels so that we can save a life, save our brand, and be hotel heroes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd. We know that people who work in hotels are on the front line. They know what's going on in their little area of work. They know. And so think about how they feel when they are part of a solution to save a young person's life. So we're so thrilled to have the hotel and lodging industry on board for SB 270. When we talk about this, and we can talk for hours about trying to stop this crime and help its survivors, but it's really best to hear from someone who's actually been through it. Wendy Barnes became a victim of a trafficker when she was a teenager and later spent time behind bars herself for her trouble. She's written a book about her experience called And Life Continues, Sex Trafficking and My Journey to Freedom. I want to say how honored and appreciative we are to have someone like Wendy be willing to step forward and share her story so that other victims don't have to live through what she has lived through. Wendy?
Thank you. So starting as a teenager and for 15 more years, I was trafficked up and down the I-5 corridor by a notorious pimp. And at least a third of that time, we were in hotels and motels. Sometimes we would stay for a day or two. Other times we would stay for many of months. At those times, I'm confident that some of the hotel staff knew what was happening. I could see that some of the staff felt sorry for us. They just didn't know how to help. If hotel staff had been trained to know what to look for and what to do when suspecting trafficking activity, I may have been saved sooner. The police had actually been watching my trafficker for many months, collecting evidence against him. After losing track of him for about 6 months, a police officer coincidentally noticed him getting out of his car one day, which that finally led to his arrest and conviction. If hotel and motel staff had known what to look for, and if the law enforcement had developed a partnership with the hotels and motels in the investigation, this notorious trafficker could have been stopped much sooner. In my case, my trafficker was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Yet upon his release, and while still on parole, he again started to recruit and traffic girls as young as 15 years old. For 4 more years, he again destroyed lives as he compelled these girls to sell themselves for his own profit. Fortunately, the police caught up with him, and with the help of my testimony from his previous convictions, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I tell you, something tragic and detrimental happens to a soul of a person after turning their first trick. Healing is truly a lifelong journey, and it begins at the moment that law enforcement intervenes or the victim escapes the situation. Tragically, the lack of resources and understanding that goes into the acute phase of victim recovery has sent many victims right back to the only life and people they know. If mental health services were trained on the special requirements for human trafficking trauma and long-term housing rehabilitation programs were available at the start of that journey, a victim's road to being a true survivor is greatly improved. For my story and those of countless others, proper, effective training and specialized mental health services would no doubt help prevent future victimization. With the passing of these bills, more traffickers will be removed from our communities and the vulnerable be turning into survivors instead of being victims. Thank you.
So you can see, this work that we're doing is really important. It affects lives. So when we talk about 8,100 people in our own community affected, this is one. This is one, and every life matters. So finally, I thought you should hear from one of the great local women's empowerment organizations. The Junior League of San Diego has been a wonderful and energetic partner in raising awareness of human trafficking. In fact, it's one of their top issues. And so I want to welcome Rachel Scatizzi. Sorry, Rachel. She is the Junior League's president, and I'm grateful that she could be with us, and she has been instrumental in helping me understand how important it is to get involved in this fight. Rachel.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Rachel Scatizzi-Thompson, and I am the president of the Junior League of San Diego. The Junior League of San Diego is part of an international network of women devoted to promoting volunteerism, developing the potential of women to be community and civic leaders, and to improving our community through the effective action and leadership of trained volunteers. During our 88 years serving the San Diego community, our membership, which currently is about 1,100 women strong, has tackled issues ranging from domestic violence to literacy, childhood obesity, to transition-age foster youth. For the past 4 years, as we've seen the alarming growth of this underground industry in San Diego and its devastating impact on not only women and girls, but disproportionately on the transition-age foster youth population, the Junior League of San Diego has taken on the task of educating the community and advocating for legislation that protects trafficking victims and attacks the problem at its source. In addition to our annual human trafficking rally held every January and our community impact forum held every November, Junior League of San Diego partners with other nonprofits, social services providers, and elected officials to raise awareness and enact law to stop this trend in its tracks. From the perspective of an organization that is deep into efforts to fight human trafficking, the critical impact of bills like these proposed by Senator Atkins, particularly when taken in concert with one another, is immeasurable. The California State Public Affairs Committee, which represents the voices and interests of 17 junior leagues in California and more than 10,000 junior league women in the state, has advocated on behalf of bills that better the lives of women and children and families. CalSPAC has keyed in on Senator Atkins' bills as a critical piece of our ongoing fight against human trafficking, and JLSD is proud to partner with her as we continue to raise awareness of this modern-day slavery epidemic that's occurring right here in our own backyards. I am also honored to announce, and this won't come as a surprise to many, that CalSPAC has just decided to honor Senator Atkins as their Legislator of the Year. Outside of my involvement with the Junior League, I am a partner in an all-female law firm and a mom to 2 little girls. So the ongoing efforts to empower women and to attack this human trafficking epidemic speak to me both personally and professionally. For that reason, I am honored to stand shoulder to shoulder with Senator Atkins as we continue this fight, and on behalf of the Junior League of San Diego, express my gratitude for the hard work that has gone into bringing this legislation to the table.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Rachel. I would just say, I have the honor of being an elected official who can make laws and who can put forward pieces of legislation. But let me look at every single person behind me here today and say I would not be able to do that without their expertise, their advocacy. They're providing me with critical pieces of information about the law, where the gaps are, the stories. I wouldn't be able to do that without them. I want everyone on the front lines, these people behind me, you, to know about this problem. You know, prosecuting traffickers, working to prevent this crime, raising awareness, working with victims to help them overcome trauma and become survivors. These are the people that I'm working with that have helped bring this incredible package of legislation forward, and you will see other pieces moving forward in the legislature in the coming days. We need to tackle the issue of services, wraparound services specifically designed for victims of a kind of trauma that not many people have been through. It's been compared to trauma experienced by prisoners of war. Am I right? This is what I've learned. So I want to thank also the members of the press for being here today and the media, because this is really about awareness and education. And your looking at this issue helps us do the awareness and the education piece. So it's really important that you're here today. And finally, before we take questions, I want to acknowledge, I see one of our, the representatives of one of our incredible members of Congress who has been a champion on this issue at the federal level, and that's Congresswoman Susan Davis. So thank you for being here. So we know that increased awareness works. We've seen it in the lodging industry, in the airline industry, in the ride-sharing industry. And the more people who become aware of how people are trafficked, abused, the closer we'll be to ending the problem. Any of us will be happy to take any questions you might have.
As far as the training, is that going to be standardized, a standardized program, and how will that be rolled out?
Will be a standardized program. There will be best practices programs available, and frankly, anyone can call the hotel and lodging industry and get access to what they have done, which has already had the seal of approval from the Department of Justice at the state level. There are other programs available, but if any motel, hotel wants information on how best to do this, they have access to existing programs already in place. And the Department of Justice will issue guidelines on what's acceptable and how the industry and any particular hotel can meet this mandated requirement once it's signed into law. Do you want to add anything, Todd? Or?
I just wanted to add one thing, that CHLA has purchased a program that's developed by Polaris, which is one of the leading agencies that is combating and educating human trafficking. And so that program is free to all CHLA members.
Well, what are the penalties for non-compliance?
Either district attorney.
This falls under the statute where those places that victims usually might be at are required to post in those areas. And it's a civil sanction, $500 and $1,000 for failure to do this, and so this would fall under that category.
Could you tell us more about the assistance for survivors and what that would look like and how many facilities?
Well, we have had legislation in the past year. Unfortunately, it was vetoed by the governor, but we don't intend to go away, those of us who are legislators and understand the need for a specific type of wraparound services. So it would be very similar to a Housing First permanent housing support model as a transition, because it's needed for longer periods. I think there are effective programs existing. Many of them pay it on their own dime and fundraise on their own dime. And what we are trying to do is make the nexus to counseling services and housing for a specific targeted group. So we're going to be looking at this through the budget process at the state, through legislation. I have a piece of legislation. It may take a little while to get through, but we know what we need. If any of the providers or folks who are involved can respond, we know what we need to do. We need to find the resources to help, because it's more effective to treat people in the right setting to get them well on the path back to, to be survivors. But it is going to take some resources, and that's going to be a discussion at the state level. In the meantime, if there are individuals out there who want to support agencies, there's a number of agencies that do private work and have filled the void of the lack of services from either the county or the state. You, please.
So my name is Elisa, and thank you for addressing this issue. Just for your information, FYI, there's only 28 beds in San Diego area for rescued women. One of the difficulty to rescue them is because there's no place to put them. So what the police do, they take them to juvenile hall. So there's injury upon injury.
And the particular issue that she's talking about is, we have looked at it in the past as more criminalization of victims. And you saw last year the passage of SB 1322, which decriminalized prostitution for underage victims, because how can an underage victim consent? But when you have been through the trauma, you look at things as if you have to hide from the police. So decriminalization of that helped in terms of trying to not make victims criminals, but we also have got to find the resources to help them in terms of the counseling and also the housing. So we're going to continue to be working on programs that specifically addresses this population of individuals.
What has been the rationale for keeping the sex trafficking history out of the courtroom when a prosecutor is trying to try a case against an accused trafficker?
It's that the law wants to protect against character evidence just for character evidence's sake, meaning just bringing in bad information about an accused. But it's our belief, and the reason we support this bill, is that it makes perfect sense. We know that these traffickers strike again, like you heard from the brave survivor, and we see it every day. So the evidence needs to be supported in the courtroom. The jurors need to hear the real truth about the case, and the only way to get the real truth is to hear what they've done in the past, because it's often very consistent.
So in Ms. Barnes' case, though, her testimony was able to result in a conviction. So was there an exception made in her case?
I believe her case was not in the state of California. It was in a state that allowed that evidence, and so that is what we're hoping to do here in California, is to bring best practices from around the country that have worked, like in Ms. Barnes' case.
If there are no other questions, individuals will be available to you if you have further questions for any specific person. I want to thank you all for being here today.